However, shock froze me as the necklace was found in my room, in one of my drawers.
You steal now, Sally? Where did I go wrong with you?
I can't take this. I can't raise a thief. You're leaving my house today.
I cried and went on my knees, begging them desperately to not send me out. I'm not a thief. I didn't take her necklace. Believe me, please, don't send me out. My pleas fell on deaf ears. Jake threw my things out and urged my parents to let me go. Of course, they weren't unwilling. I was sent out of my parents' home. Have you ever felt like the least favorite among your siblings? Or have you been shown by your parents that you're their least favorite child? How did it feel? I have experienced it, alongside hatred from my siblings, and I'll share it with you. My name's Sally, and I was born as the middle child. I had two siblings, Penny and Jake. Penny was 3 years younger than me, while Jake was 3 years older than me. My parents were quite wealthy. I mean, we had our own house, 2 cars, and they both ran a small company and a fashion brand. I couldn't remember my experiences before Penny was born, but I knew that as she grew, Jake liked her more. He would always hit and hurl insults at me on the slightest provocation, but Penny was his beloved sibling who didn't deserve any of that. Jake and Penny were very brilliant and would often top their various classes. I was brilliant too, but there was high competition in my class. I was always coming second or third, the top ones only having a slightly higher percentage than mine, but it didn't seem satisfactory to my parents.
They study well, that's why they're able to pass you. Study harder and top your class too. Your siblings do it so easily.
You're older than Penny, but your unseriousness is starting to make it appear the other way around. You should look up to Penny and Jake and learn from them.
I was a sensitive child. Words like that got to me, and it would make me cry. However, my family always got annoyed and called me a weakling. My parents will ignore all my birthdays, but will celebrate that of Penny and Jake, and will make me clean. After the celebration, according to them, I won't amount to anything, since I wasn't as intelligent as Penny and Jake. My parents were bad, but my siblings were insane, especially Jake. I had no idea what wrong I did to him. He was always so happy whenever he got me into trouble with either Penny or my parents. Once, I got mercilessly beaten up by Penny. I was 16 then, and she was only 13. I'd just had my bath after returning from school. As I went to sit at the dining table to enjoy my meal, Jake suddenly came up to me, wearing a devilish grin. "What do you want, Jake? I'm not in the mood for your annoyance, please. I'll appreciate it if you leave me alone now."
Oh, I'd actually come to tell you something important. But since you've asked me to leave, I have no choice.
I didn't say anything. I didn't even lift my eyes from my plate. He walked away laughing. I wondered what it was that he wanted to say. I became curious. The only time Jake ever came to me like that were times when he put me in trouble. Yes. Jake loved to see me getting punished. He would lie against me to my parents, and without asking for my side of the story, they would punish me. Jake was always at a corner, chuckling happily to himself. He also did it to Penny. He would lie about me saying something, and Penny, with her bad temper, would come and fight me. Penny had grown bigger than me. She would easily pass as my elder sister, and that made her even more comfortable bullying me. Whenever Jake liked to make Penny beat me up, he made sure my parents were going to return late so that I'd be asleep before their home. Just after I finished eating and attempted to stand up, 2 hands pressed on my shoulders, forcing me back to the chair. My heart raced. I knew it was Penny. No one else could do that. I turned and saw her behind me, holding a frown.
"How dare you? How dare you call me a fat pig in front of your friend?"
I didn't even have any friends, so how could I have said that about her? I tried to tell her what she heard was a lie. "I don't have any friends, Penny. I only speak to my classmates at school, and it's only a few of them. They sometimes don't even respond to me."
That lie isn't gonna work, Sally. You're a liar and a freaking pretender. All you do is hate on me and talk bad things about me because of your stupid jealousy.
I swear to you, Penny, I've never spoken ill of you to anyone.
You have. You always do. Jake tells me every time. Right, Jake?
Just then, Jake showed up again with a mischievous smile on his face.
Yes. I heard her on 2 different occasions. Her friends also told me. According to them, they felt sad for us because Sally's our sister, and all she does is badmouth us. Well, you especially.
Before I could speak, Penny slapped me. I screamed and fell to the floor, feeling the pain pierce my cheek. Tears quickly gathered in my eyes as I stared at them in disbelief. My own siblings. Jake is lying, Penny. I never said anything bad about you both. I don't have anyone to even say anything to.
Shut up, you liar. You're so filthy. I can see why Mom and Dad hate you. You're ugly, dull, and filled with jealousy and hatred for others. I'm going to make sure Mom and Dad punish you.
Next time, be careful of the things you say. It's unfair to speak so ill of people, especially your siblings.
I cried as I watched them walk away. I tried to go to my room, but I found out that they'd locked my door. I guess they needed it to be easier for my parents to punish me. I sat down on the cold kitchen floor until my parents returned home. Once they settled in the living room, my siblings tabled their lies before them. The next thing I heard was my dad calling my name loudly. Fearfully, I walked out of the kitchen and went to them.
Are you crazy? How could you do such things about your sister?
I'm so disappointed in you. How can you be such a hater? She's your sister. They're your siblings. I can't believe you.
I had no idea what they told my parents. Jake lied. I didn't say anything about them to anyone. He's lying against me. My tears and pleas weren't enough to save my ass from getting whooped. Jake held me while my parents hit me, and Penny stood away from us, smiling happily. They were cruel to me, but I couldn't hate them. I couldn't bring myself to hate them. I kept my distance and only spoke when spoken to. Jake and Penny didn't stop taunting me. Whenever my parents weren't home, they would insult me and follow me around, annoying me in any way possible and daring me to respond. Of course, I never did. I knew too well then to say anything. Responding would only mean getting whooped by my parents who never listened to me. Time passed, and I was soon done with high school. On my graduation day, Jake had an event in college. My parents chose to attend his event and ditched my graduation.
It's just a party. Jake's event is more important. He makes us proud.
I'd rather be at his event than be at your graduation when you won't even be announced as the best graduating student. It's too embarrassing.
Of course, I felt bad. Regardless, I enjoyed my graduation. I didn't speak to anyone, but I felt good being among the students. I had to stay at home for 1 year because my parents didn't feel the need to send me to college yet. Since they hastened my sister's education, she graduated 1 year after I did. My brother had skipped class that day to attend her graduation. My sister wasn't the best graduating students, but anyone could see the pride smiles on their faces as they clapped and yelled out congratulations to her. I cried a little when I went to the restroom. That night, when we arrived home, my parents gifted her a very beautiful necklace. I hadn't gotten anything. She shoved it in my face, telling me how she was our parents' favorite and how they loved her more. My parents heard all of that and simply laughed about it. 1 week later, Penny suddenly cried from her bedroom.
Someone has stolen my necklace.
The whole house went into panic as we began looking around for the necklace. Jake suddenly suggested for everyone's rooms to be checked. I didn't have any opposition. However, shock froze me as the necklace was found in my room, in one of my drawers.
You steal now, Sally? Where did I go wrong with you?
I can't take this. I can't raise a thief. You're leaving my house today.
I cried and went on my knees, begging them desperately to not send me out. I'm not a thief. I didn't take her necklace. Believe me. Please. Don't send me out. My pleas fell on deaf ears. Jake threw my things out and urged my parents to let me go. Of course, they weren't unwilling. I was sent out of my parents' home. They took my credit card and all the cash I had, leaving me stranded. It was a tough period for me. I roamed around streets, begging for money from anyone I came across. A few were kind enough to give me, but others simply shamed and pushed me away. Luckily, a good Samaritan found me and helped me. I told her all about what happened, and she felt so bad for me. She took me to her home and helped me with a job. After 2 years of doing multiple jobs and saving up enough money, I was able to move out and get my own apartment. The lady had become like a mother to me. I'd grown to love her so much. Life was tough, but I didn't give up. I worked so much harder. I was also able to begin my college education. After 4 years, at age 26, I started my fashion company. I hadn't heard about my parents' business for years, but I didn't care. I worked so hard to grow my company. Fortunately for me, people soon began showing massive interest in my brand. Soon, big brands began seeking collaboration with me. Life was beginning to go smoothly. By the time I was 28, I'd become one of the young rich ladies in the country. My business largely expanded with branches in 5 different countries. I built 2 houses. The kind lady who assisted me lived in one with her husband and children. We were all like a family. Surprisingly, my parents and siblings showed up in my house one day. Jake was on a wheelchair and Penny was heavily pregnant. My parents looked so old and tattered. They were seeking help from me. Jake had been rendered crippled in jail after a failed robbery attempt. Penny had gotten a great job, but had been scammed by her ex-boyfriend who'd pretended to be an investor. He'd not only scammed Penny, but also my parents. They'd already gone broke after spending a lot to bail Jake and have him treated. After Penny's ex-boyfriend absconded with their remaining wealth, they were reduced to church rats. They lived on the streets and fed by begging people. It was exciting to see them suffering. Perhaps it was karma for what they did to me, for all the trauma they gave me, the years I had to live with constant panic attacks, the sadness I felt, everything. They begged for money and a place to live, but I refused them. I would rather burn my money to ashes than help you all with anything. Get out of my house and don't let me ever see you again. They continued begging, my parents in tears, but I refused. I called on my guards who threw them out of my house. They were unfair to me throughout my life and never regarded me as their child. I don't have any reason to treat them well. Tit for tat. A few months later, I heard Penny had died during childbirth, and the news of her passing had caused my dad to have a heart attack, and he died as well. So my mom now takes care of my crippled brother, and she cleans people's houses to make a living. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment, asking her to let us go to a hospital and stop whatever it was that she was doing. Her response was completely unexpected.
I'm sorry, honey, but you can't leave. If you go to the hospital, they're going to know that I've been slowly poisoning you both. I need you both to die.
I couldn't believe my ears. My dad looked pale himself.
Why? Why are you doing this?
I heard you, idiot. I heard you telling your lawyer to give all your properties to this stupid child of yours. What about Sasha and I? What do we get? What are you gonna get if you kill us, Steph? You're a good person. Don't let greed control you, please.
Oh, darling. I was never a good person. I came in here with the sole purpose of inheriting your dad's company after his death. Him willing everything to you just made me strike earlier than planned.
We were hurt and felt betrayed. Hi there, my name's Abby, and I managed to escape being killed by my stepmom and her daughter. I know you're curious as to how they wanted to kill me and how I managed to escape. I'll tell you. But first, a little backstory. I lost my mom around age 16. At first, it was just a mild back pain and headaches, until she began passing out constantly. She'd assured us that she was fine.
It's just stress. I'll take a few days off until I'm better.
We all believed her. My mother worked very hard with my dad to keep the company going. She was allowed to rest as much as she wanted. My grandparents ensured to take care of her, and I did the same whenever I was home. However, there was no progress even after 3 weeks. A month later, and my mom was suddenly paralyzed. She was immediately rushed to the hospital where she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. My dad was broken, my grandparents devastated, and I couldn't even point out what I was feeling. She needed immediate surgery according to the doctor. My dad didn't delay. Everything happened so fast. Before I knew it, I was holding my mom's hand in tears as they wheeled her to the theater room. None of us could sleep throughout the hours the surgery took. All we wanted to hear was good news, but the universe had a different plan for us. And the doctors finally walked out of the theater room with sad faces and informed us that the surgery had gone well, but my mom didn't make it out alive. We all broke into tears. I felt my world crumble as I watched my grandmother faint, and my dad and grandfather shaking as they cried. It was the saddest day of my life. Well, we buried her a few days later and mourned for years. I felt so bad for my dad. He rarely spoke anymore and only focused on work and ensuring that I and my grandparents were doing well. Oftentimes, I would see him in the living room, crying when he thought everyone was asleep. Even after 4 years, he still missed his wife so much. I wanted him to be fine. I wanted him to feel loved, the way my mom would have loved him if she were still alive. So I advised him to find another woman. At first, he thought I was crazy and didn't know what I was saying. But soon, after I talked to him so many more times, he realized I was right. He needed company. He introduced Steph to the family 1 year after. I encouraged him to move on. Steph was a young, stunning woman and seemed kind. My dad had brought her home and she prepared dinner for the family. She had a beautiful smile and was super kind to my grandparents. I could see how she handled them with care. I guess it was her plan to gain our trust. She did succeed. After visiting twice more, she'd gotten our hearts. We saw her as a lovable person and supported her relationship with my dad. About 3 months later, we were introduced to her daughter, Sasha. Steph had cried after we accepted her daughter. According to her, she'd thought we would hate her for it. She was so pitiful that we were all fooled. 2 months after she introduced Sasha to us, Steph and my dad got married. I was particularly excited because of Sasha. She was only 2 years older than me, so I felt we could be best friends. However, she didn't seem like who was a talker. She often kept to herself and only smiled and gave few words when spoken to. I soon concluded that we couldn't be what I had envisioned, but we were still cool. I was still in college when Steph and my dad got married. She and her daughter officially moved into our house in the day of the wedding. It felt good having more people. My dad had wanted Steph to be a full-time housewife so she could look after his parents, but she disagreed. I knew because I overheard them discussing it 2 nights after their wedding.
I never told you I wanted to stay home. I want to work with you. I want to help in the company. You know how much I love to work.
I reasoned with her. It wasn't going to be fun being home all day. We had 2 maids who looked after my grandparents. I thought it was enough. Before stepping away, I heard my dad agree with her. Steph joined the company as the vice president. I didn't like it at first, seeing that it was the position which my mom had occupied when she was alive. But I reminded myself that she was gone and Steph was married to my dad now. Everything was going smoothly until 2 years later, when I finished college. I was 23 then. Steph was still her good self, and her daughter was barely home. She worked as a flight attendant. After graduation, I was ready to join my dad's company. He'd always told me to prepare for when I'll join. I was happy that it was finally time. However, Steph seemed to have other plans.
Abby doesn't have any working experience. I don't think it's advisable to bring her in just yet. Let her get a job somewhere else and she can come in.
But the position I prepared for her is vacant.
Well, Sasha can be there until Abby is ready. She quit her job yesterday and is currently jobless.
I'd thought it was absurd at first, but Steph had managed to convince me that it was better to have experience first, so I'd be able to manage the whole company someday. Of course, I'd accepted. The woman had a very sweet way of being manipulative, but I wasn't aware yet. Neither was my dad. A month later, I suddenly fell sick at the same time my dad did. We were both having serious abdominal pain that felt like it was going to claim our lives. We wanted to go to the hospital, but Steph refused.
I'll just bring my personal doctor to check you both.
We agreed. In fact, we were grateful to her. During the days we had to be treated at home, she did well handling the company and also finding time to help us. That made me love and trust her even more. We got better and went back to our lives. However, the abdominal pain returned after 2 months. It was worse than the first. Again, Steph brought her doctor to treat us. It stopped, but came back again after another 2 months. The pain was nearly unbearable. We badly wanted to go to the hospital, but Steph refused. We couldn't argue. We were too weak to argue. Our treatment lasted longer than the previous ones. Our recovery was also slow.
I think you both need to stop working for now. Sasha and I will handle the company and any other thing. I need you both to stay at home until you're better.
We agreed that she was right. We couldn't work in such condition. My dad wasn't worried about leaving the company in her care. She was doing a good job anyway. We stayed at home, hoping to be better in a few weeks. Unfortunately, whenever we felt better and ready to return to work, the pain would return again. After 3 months, my dad and I had become lean. We'd also become weak that we needed to use wheelchairs for movement. My grandparents advised us to visit a hospital, but we couldn't. Not after Steph assured us that her doctor knew what he was doing. When we only got worse, I told my dad that we needed to visit a hospital. When we told Steph, she flared up.
Why can't you listen to me, you idiots? You're going to no hospital, got it?
I was shocked at her words. What even shocked me more was when she seized everyone's phones, including the maids, and threatened us with a gun. She also began locking us in whenever she and Sasha left for work. We immediately knew something was wrong and we needed to seek help. We had no means of communication or escape. My dad confronted her one night, asking her to let us go to a hospital and stop whatever it was that she was doing. Her response was completely unexpected.
I'm sorry, honey, but you can't leave. If you go to the hospital, they're going to know that I've been slowly poisoning you both. I need you both to die.
I couldn't believe my ears. My dad looked pale himself.
Why? Why are you doing this?
I heard you, idiot. I heard you telling your lawyer to give all your properties to this stupid child of yours. What about Sasha and I? What do we get? What are you gonna get if you kill us, Steph? You're a good person. Don't let greed control you, please.
Oh, darling, I was never a good person. I came in here with the sole purpose of inheriting your dad's company after his death. Him willing everything to you just made me strike earlier than planned.
We were hurt and felt betrayed. The doctor stopped coming to treat us. We were hopeless, and no one was allowed to leave the house. We were all locked up inside. Well, until one of the maids revealed that she had a second phone, which Steph didn't know about.
You've all been good to me. I can't watch Mrs. Steph kill you all.
We were grateful. Immediately, I called my aunt who lived nearby. I explained everything to her and asked her to come to the house with police when Sasha and Steph were home. Once we made our plans, I returned the phone to the maid, and she hid it again. Mother and daughter returned home, but we pretended like nothing had happened. Later that night, while they were both upstairs in Sasha's room, my aunt and the police burst into the house. Luckily, the police had came without the noise of their sirens, and the security guard had let them in as he saw my aunt. Steph and her mother jumped out through Sasha's window as they heard the police. Immediately, they chased the two women. According to the police, they both ran so fast and had to be shot in their legs to stop them. While both of them were taken to the station, my dad and I received treatment in the hospital. According to the doctor, the poison had ate deep into us. One more strike from Steph and we could have died. We spent a month at the hospital before getting discharged. During that 1 month, Steph and her daughter were charged with attempted murder by poisoning. They also had to face the court for keeping us hostage in the house for weeks. During their stay in the police station, mother and daughter had confessed that they'd poisoned us through the special family dinner we always had every 2 months. I remembered when Steph suggested it. I'd been so happy that our family would have a tradition, unknowing that it was a way to kill us slowly. Well, since Steph, who was now paralyzed and moved with the help of a wheelchair as a result of the gun wound on her leg, was the main orchestrator of everything, she was given a life sentence with hard labor. Her daughter got 10 years and 2 years community service after release. Sasha's wound hadn't healed properly, so she had to support herself with crutches. My dad and I recovered and began working again. I took over as the vice president. We didn't forget about what Steph and Sasha did, but we never talked about it. 8 months later, we heard about Sasha's death. Apparently, her wound had gotten seriously infected and refused to heal. The leg had to be amputated, but Sasha died 2 months later after the amputated leg also got infected. We also heard that Steph lost her sanity after hearing the news. She'd lost everything. She started acting like she was mad, talking to herself while walking. Not long after, people noticed and she was taken to a mental care facility, where she still stays. Regardless, my dad and I were happy, and that was all that mattered. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. He must have thought he'd gone free, but Peter and I had our plans. Peter was hiding and waiting outside for him. Once he got out, Peter calculated his move before pouncing on him. I ran out with my son to see him sitting on Carl, throwing punches to his face. Peter was a skilled Taekwondo black belt fighter, and Carl was a weakling. I knew he'd be finished in a few minutes. I covered my son's eyes, while Peter continued hitting Carl. He beat Carl up so much that the man was nearly unrecognizable. There was blood all over his body, and his ankles had been twisted by Peter. His right hand was obviously broken. His right eye was bleeding. As we walked away, I doubted his survival if no one found him. Lately, whenever I see someone intentionally ignoring the red flags in their relationships, I feel so angry. I often try to talk them out of it, even though I know it's impossible to make them leave with just a conversation. I just want to try to make a difference. My blood boils whenever I see a man hitting a woman, and most times, I'm tempted to hit the man. You might be wondering, what's her deal? Well, I was once a victim of an abusive relationship. I'm Chloe Sanders, a medical doctor aged 30, now married to the most caring man in the world with our son, Jason. About 10 years ago, I'd met Carl, my ex-husband. When we first met, I never suspected or noticed any signs of him being abusive. He had a very beautiful and friendly smile, but showed no sign of being humble or respectful. Whenever we went out to eat in a restaurant, he got into a fight with a worker. It was either the worker frowned at him, didn't drop his plate soundlessly enough, or walked too fast away from us. It got worse to the extent of me not wanting to follow him out anymore. I was always embarrassed at his behavior. However, that was only a quarter of his attitude. Carl despised kids. I'm a lover of kids, so whenever we went to a park, I loved to wave and smile at kids when I saw them. However, Carl was different. He would make ugly faces at them. If he got a hold on them, he would harm them. And then, when he got angry. Carl could bring down a house if angered. While we were courting, he hit me countless times during arguments. He would sometimes destroy my properties if he got too angry. After 3 days or 4, he would visit me and apologize in tears, claiming to not know what took over him. Of course, I was stupid. I would forgive him whenever he apologized. I ensured that for the 2 years we dated. After my 22nd birthday, he proposed to me. Despite knowing all of the bad behaviors he possessed, I agreed to marry him. Our marriage wasn't huge. I was working then, but Carl wasn't. My money was used to fund the wedding, but I didn't mind. I was blinded by my love for him. Carl grew worse after our wedding. Whenever we fought, he always hit me in my most sensitive spots. My both parents were dead. They died when I was 18, and as a result of that, I had to drop out of college and started working to help myself. Now, before they died, they weren't on good terms. My mother had died first. No, it wasn't a natural death. Her death was as a result of both their mistakes. They were having a fight that week and weren't on speaking terms with each other. My mom was asthmatic and crippled from her waist downward. She'd also run out of her inhaler. But because she wasn't speaking with my dad, she didn't tell him about it. That night, with 3 of us in the living room, my mom had an attack. I immediately rushed to her room to get her inhaler, but I couldn't find any. Meanwhile, my dad had sat there, ignoring her as she struggled to breathe. He'd probably thought I'd bring the inhaler. When I came out a few minutes later, I saw my mom unmoving on the floor and my dad's eyes on the TV. It was only when I screamed that my dad moved. It seemed as though he'd only regained his senses back. No matter how much we tried, we couldn't revive her. My father couldn't live with the guilt. 2 months later, he committed suicide, and I was left alone. I never told anyone about what had truly transpired. I lived with it until I met Carl. Because I told him about it, he always brought it up whenever we were having a fight. I'm not going to do this with your silly ass today, Carl.
You dare not try me, and I'm gonna kill you and bury it up the way you buried the truth about your pathetic parents.
It went like that? Of course. I felt threatened and attacked. So, usually, when he said that, I would keep quiet and simply go into my room to cry. In the 4th month of us being married, I got pregnant. When I told Carl about it, he wasn't happy.
How can you be pregnant? Don't you know I'm jobless? Oh, you plan to take care of the child when it's born and take care of it alone, so I'd be like a bad father, huh?
He was always quick to draw conclusions like that. I tried to explain to him that I'd never think about doing that, but he refused to listen. I was shocked when he asked me to abort the child. What? I'd never do that. You don't expect me to kill my child, Carl. Never.
If you won't, then I'm gonna be left with no choice but to do it myself.
I was terrified. I pondered upon what he had in mind. Out of fear, I stopped eating and drinking anything recklessly in the house. When I cooked, I ensured to eat immediately. When I drank water and left half of it, I never drank the leftover again. I got extra careful, afraid that he might poison me. However, that wasn't what he had in mind. When my pregnancy was 2 months gone, we had our biggest fight. I'd accidentally spilled tea on the new bed cover he bought, and that got him angry. He beat me up like I was nothing but a punching bag. When I lay on the floor, too tired to move, he began stomping his foot on my stomach. I screamed out in pain, begging him to stop, but he refused.
This asshole in you is dying today. I'm not gonna allow you to bring any problems here. Die, child.
I could tell, right there, that Carl wasn't in his right senses. Once he saw that I was bleeding, he stopped, grabbed his phone, wallet, a few clothes and shoes before rushing out of the house, leaving me to whatever fate had in store for me. I managed, with my last strength, to call the ambulance. Once I'd given my location and asked them to hurry, I passed out. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't tell how many days I'd spent in a coma, but I knew it was a lot. Also, I lost the child. Nothing was more heartbreaking than that news. I saw my world crumble. I wondered who paid for my treatment, as I had no one. I was told later on that the head doctor had done so. I requested to see him, and he came. Contrary to what I had expected, he was a young man, and very handsome. He promised to take care of me throughout my stay at the hospital. 1 week after I woke up, I told the head doctor about what Carl had done to me, and he was livid. He swore to get Carl arrested if he found him. A few days later, Carl showed up at the hospital. I quickly alerted the head doctor who beat him up before calling the police on him. It was shocking that he was bold enough to come to the hospital and ask for forgiveness. Anyway, he was jailed for 5 years. Life began to go smoothly for me. While Carl was in jail, I got a divorce and started my life afresh. The doctor and I were starting to get close, and soon, about 6 months later, we confessed having feelings for each other. The doctor, Peter, was the exact opposite of Carl. He took care of me more than I did for myself. He showed me love in every sweet way, and I couldn't be happier. He also helped me return to college before getting me a part-time job, which paid very handsomely. Life was getting better. After a year and a few months of dating, we got married. It was a grand wedding, and Peter refused to allow me to add even the littlest amount into the funding of the wedding. We had fights, but he always made sure to never cross any boundaries and never raised his hand to me. At 26, I had my son with Peter. He didn't stomp on my stomach to kill the child like Carl did, and loved him before he was even born. Our son was everything to us, and our growing family was happy. Well, until Carl was released. My son was aged 2 when Carl got released. I hadn't bothered about it, thinking he would be too ashamed to show his face to me. Well, he didn't show his face to me, but he did, to my son. My son suddenly went missing, 6 days after Carl returned. We reported to the cops, searched everywhere, called everyone, all to no avail. According to his school, a man had come to pick him up claiming to be my brother. They'd even spoken to me through his phone. Apparently, Carl had made a fake call and someone made it sound like I was the one speaking. With my permission, they released my son to him. I nearly went crazy. Suddenly, I got a call from Carl.
Hey, baby, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Carl, you bastard! Where's my son? He laughed and told me to meet him up without the police if I wanted to see my son. He requested $500,000 as ransom, claiming he deserved it for all the years he spent in jail.
I know you're rich, alongside your husband. You have until 3 days to bring me the money. Otherwise, forget about your son.
My heart shattered. He also warned me to come alone. I knew reporting to the police about him requesting for ransom would be a bad idea. Personally, I wanted to deal with Carl myself. I didn't want him going to jail. as that barely did anything to make him feel bad about his nasty behavior. I told Peter about it and he was pissed. Together, we drafted out a plan to deal with Carl ourselves. On the third day, we left our house without the police knowing, to the address he'd sent. Actually, I went in a different car, as I didn't want him knowing Peter would be coming with me. As soon as he saw me, he burst into a mocking laughter, holding my son beside him. My blood boiled. I didn't want his filthy hands on my child.
Is that the money? Bring it to me.
The bag in my hand was filled with fake dollar notes. I slowly walked to him and gave him the back. He opened it, and his greedy eyes widened as he saw the cash, not knowing they were all fake. Can I have my son now? Without hesitation, he pushed my son to me, and I pulled him into a hug, comforting him as I saw the fear in his eyes.
Well, I hope we never cross paths again. Bye, Chloe.
I ignored him as he hurriedly walked out of the room. He must have thought he'd gone free, but Peter and I had our plans. Peter was hiding and waiting outside for him. Once he got out, Peter calculated his move before pouncing on him. I ran out with my son to see him sitting on Carl, throwing punches to his face. Peter was a skilled Taekwondo black belt fighter, and Carl was a weakling. I knew he'd be finished in a few minutes. I covered my son's eyes, while Peter continued hitting Carl. He beat Carl up so much that the man was nearly unrecognizable. There was blood all over his body, and his ankles had been twisted by Peter. His right hand was obviously broken. His right eye was bleeding. As we walked away, I doubted his survival if no one found him. We left the area without raising any alarm. We knew he wouldn't dare involve the police, and would be scared to tamper with us and his miserable life again. We left him there, grumbling in pain. But did we care? Of course not. He'd tampered with our child and deserved to be punished. Would you do more if you were us? I then got the idea that if my grandma had hired someone to kill my mom, her own daughter, and had tried to kill me by giving me bad medication once, that there was a good chance that she would try again. And so I went over to my grandma's house with a plan. Hello there. Can I come in? I have something important I need to talk to you about.
Oh, it's you. Fine, but make it quick.
Well, I've thought long and hard about it, and the company just isn't for me. Would you like to buy my share of the company that I inherited from your daughter? You can pay me whatever it is that you think is fair. Hi there. My name is Susan, and I have a bit of a dark story to share. Let me start off by saying that I'm not exactly proud of what I did, but honestly, I would not hesitate to do it again. What did I do? Well, let me give you the run-up to what happened, and it will help you to understand why I did what I did. You may still think I wasn't justified doing what I did, but that's for you to decide. Growing up, my family was very poor. I was an only child, and my father left my mother and I when I was very young, and while my mother did her best, she barely was able to keep us both fed and clothed. I knew for a fact that some nights that my mom wouldn't eat at all, because she didn't have enough money but still wanted to make sure that I ate something. Then tragedy struck, and my mother died from an industrial accident at work. Since my father was nowhere to be found, I was put in an orphanage. Thankfully, I didn't have to stay there very long. My adoptive mother, Nancy, was volunteering in the area to help feed the homeless and was visiting the orphanage to help out when she saw me. She instantly knew that she wanted to be my mother, and so she filled out the paperwork. And a couple weeks later, I was on an airplane with her going to a faraway land to live with her in America. It was awkward as I had a hard time learning the language, but Nancy was very patient with me. She gave me all the clothes, food, and toys I could ever ask for. And it didn't take me very long to start to warm up to her. After my mother had passed, I had never thought I would be a member of a family again, but I truly did love Nancy. My new grandparents, though, hated me.
Hey, Mom and Dad, I want for you to meet Susan. This is Susan? Oh, Nancy, why couldn't you have adopted a white child at least? It's bad enough that you refused to give us a flesh and blood grandchild, but to adopt this black child instead, it's revolting.
We can't believe that you would be such an idiot to adopt her. Well, just so long as you know that she will never inherit my company. There is no way some black girl will get any of my money.
Nancy just bit her tongue when they would say such things, as she didn't want to cause any conflict. But later she would always tell me that she would always ensure that I was taken care of, and that no matter what, that I would one day inherit the company. When I was very young, I didn't really think much about it. But as I grew up, I began to look forward to one day running the company. My grandfather owned a toy company and made millions from the sale of the toys that he manufactured. I didn't care so much about the money, but the idea of making toys for a living sounded like a lot of fun and filled me with happiness. I just really enjoyed the idea that things that I made would bring joy and comfort to children all over the world. It felt like a dream job. Years passed and I slowly grew up, and when I was around 15, two tragic things transpired. The first was that I was diagnosed with diabetes. Honestly, it wasn't so bad. I just had to take medication both in pill form and the occasional injection, and I was able to manage it. The other tragedy was much more impactful. My grandfather had a serious stroke and passed away after being rushed to the hospital. At the funeral, my grandmother avoided my mother and I as much as possible. I later found out that the reason why was due to the fact that she had inherited half of my grandfather's company and that my mother had inherited the other half. I think that it terrified her, that there was a chance that I would one day own what she and her husband had created.
Nancy, now that your father is gone, I want to take the company in a different direction. However, I can't do so with only owning half the company. As your mother, I demand that you sell me your share of the company. Why would I do that? Because I deserve to own the company, not you, and certainly not that ugly daughter of yours. That foreign devil probably caused your father's stroke somehow with black magic or something. Can you hear yourself? Why would you say something so incredibly crazy? Oh, just stuff it. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing you call me a racist. Now just sell me the company or I'll make you regret it.
Of course, my mother refused to sell to her. After all, Nancy wanted for me to inherit the company as she knew how much it meant to me. But my grandma was an evil woman, and even though Nancy was her daughter, she still was trying to force her to give up her half of the company. She would even hire people to come to our house and harass my mom, telling her that if she didn't sell the company that they would be forced to hurt her or burn down our house. My mother always told them to leave and even threatened a few of them with a baseball bat and told them that if she had to, that she would break their skulls with it. The men that my grandma sent were never small men, and seeing my mother stand up to them was inspirational. It gave me courage every time I would see it happen. Years passed, and when I turned 21, my mother began training me at the company. This, of course, upset my grandma incredibly, and she made it known that it irritated her. She never outright said anything, but we would see her around the company, and she would give my mother and I dirty, angry looks that spoke volumes. Then one day, I was making dinner and waiting for my mom to get home from work when I got a call that there had been an accident. While walking home from work, a mugger had attacked and shot my mom, and she was being rushed to the hospital. I drove there immediately and nearly broke down when the doctor told me that the injuries were too severe and that she wasn't going to make it. By morning the next day, she had passed away, and I was an orphan. I was inconsolable and distraught. Oddly enough, my grandma came over to my house and tried to comfort me.
Oh, Susan, these things happen. It's best not to dwell on it too much.
Dwell? My mother's body isn't even cold, and you expect me to move on with my life?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be heartless. Would you please excuse me? I need to use the restroom.
I was so incredibly annoyed with her, so when she came back into the room and said that she needed to leave, I was quite happy. I didn't want her in my house to begin with and was happy to see her go. Hours after she left, though, I went to take my medication and noticed that my pills looked odd. For starters, there were more in the bottle than there had been earlier in the day, and the shape of them seemed slightly off. I don't know if it was paranoia or if my intuition was telling me to be wary, but I grabbed the bottle and took it down to the pharmacy I usually got them from. The doctor there took one look at the pills I had and said that they were sugar pills and not diabetes medication. I instantly knew what had happened. My grandma had only come over to make it look like she was worried about me and had instead used it as a ruse to swap my medication out. I asked the doctor at the pharmacy what would have happened if I had taken the sugar pills, and he told me that they would have killed me. Terrified, I got a new prescription and took the sugar pills home with me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them, but I knew that I could use them for something. The next day at work, I stared daggers at my grandma, but said nothing to her. Then during lunch, her assistant cornered me in the lunchroom and asked to speak privately with me. I agreed, since she had always been nice to me and she looked like she really had something important to tell me. Hello, Betty. What is it? What did you need to tell me in private?
Well, it's like this. I think your grandma had something to do with your mom's death.
What do you mean?
I don't have any physical proof, but I overheard her tell someone that she expected him to get the job done and that she had paid him extra to use a gun to make it as painless as possible. The next day, I heard how your mom was shot during a mugging, and, well, it felt like too much of a coincidence. Something tells me that she might try to hurt you next.
I thanked Betty and promised that I would be careful. I knew that she had been telling me the truth as Betty had always been an honest person. Later, I checked the company's financial records and saw that some money had been transferred from the company bank account to someone outside the company. The transaction just had them listed as an outside contractor. This sort of thing never happened, and I could only assume that it proved what Betty had said had been true. I then got the idea that if my grandma had hired someone to kill my mom, her own daughter, and had tried to kill me by giving me bad medication once, that there was a good chance that she would try again. And so I went over to my grandma's house with a plan. Hello there. Can I come in? I have something important I need to talk to you about.
Oh, it's you. Fine, but make it quick.
Well, I've thought long and hard about it, and the company just isn't for me. Would you like to buy my share of the company that I inherited from your daughter? You can pay me whatever it is that you think is fair. I could tell that she was surprised by this, but was happy that I was essentially giving her exactly what she wanted.
I mean, of course. I'll give you a fair value for your share, of course. Thank you for understanding that it's best to keep the company in the family.
Yes, I understand. Actually, would you excuse me for a second? I need to use the restroom. She told me that I could, and just as had done, I went and changed her medications out for the sugar pills she had tried to give me. Afterwards, I went and joined her in her living room again, and we talked about how she would write up the documents necessary for me to sell her my half of the company. And then we agreed to close on the deal in a few days at the office. The next day, she didn't come into work, and later in the day, I found out that she had had a heart attack and was in the hospital struggling for her life. One of the medications I replaced was nitroglycerin pills that she needed for her angina. I went to the hospital and saw her in a bed. She looked ragged, and I could tell that she was struggling to stay conscious. She looked at me with pleading eyes, but she didn't have the strength to speak. Hello, Grandma. Oh my, you do look terrible. But don't worry, it will all be over soon. By the way, I know that you had my mother killed, and also that you tried to kill me. Don't worry though. Once you pass on, I will take very good care of the company. By the way, how did those sugar pills taste? Her eyes filled up with fear as I spoke, and she suddenly had a massive heart attack and passed away. So my friend, I know what you must be thinking. I should have gone to the police and let them handle things, but I just couldn't. She had my mother murdered, her own daughter, for crying out loud. I'm not a complete monster though. I do feel guilty for what I did, and even though it doesn't make up for it. In my grandma's name, I make donations every year. I've arranged for toys to be made and sent to children all over the world. I've also changed the hiring practices at the company, and we now have a much more diverse staff as well. So there you have it. I know what I did was wrong, but I would do it all again if given the chance. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
On that day, the only people present were I and Gloria, her parents, and his teachers. In the middle of the funeral, however, someone suddenly burst into the cemetery. I turned and was shocked to see the manager. "Why are you here, sir? You must be stupid for asking me that. Did I give you the permission to leave your work to bury God knows whatever it is you're burying? How dare you say that about my son? Is the dead thing more important than your job? Huh, you idiot?" I was filled with rage and ordered him to leave, but he refused. "You're either going to stop this rubbish you're doing now and come with me, or be prepared to lose your job." In anger, I told him to do whatever he wanted. I told him to fire me if he wanted, and I didn't care. He still wasn't having it. He tried to grab my arm and lift me up, but I pushed him off. Everyone was in shock. When he punched me, all hell let loose. My father-in-law immediately contacted the police as I and some of the guys around pounced on him and began to beat him up mercilessly. By the time the police arrived, he already had a broken lips, nose, and other injuries. He was immediately arrested and taken away. Hello, I'm Thane Jason, and I'm 35 years of age. I lost my parents to the cold hands of death 15 years ago, and a few months after their death was when I met Gloria, my present wife. I hadn't finished college yet, and my job as a part-time waiter was barely able to completely foot my bills. Gloria's parents were very wealthy and kind-hearted people. When they heard from their daughter that I didn't have a good job or enough money to even take care of my school expenses, they spoke to me about wanting to help me further my education. I couldn't believe my ears. I was already making plans to drop out, as the load was too much on me. I felt like I was dreaming when they took my bank details and sent me the money to clear all school bills for the year, and also extra for my feeding. I was amazed. I thanked them non-stop. I eventually graduated from college 3 years later, at age 23. By then, Gloria was in her final year. So once I was out, I began searching around for jobs. I wanted to get married to Gloria with my money. I also didn't want to work under her father or get the job from any of his friends. I searched around for 3 whole weeks before I finally got a job at a paper editing company. I passed the interview and got employed. The pay wasn't large, but it was comfortable. When I told Gloria about it, she was overjoyed. I worked at the company for over 5 years before I had to move again to a different company with a slightly higher pay. By the time I was 30, we already had a son aged 5. Jack was our world, and we both worked hard to give him whatever he wanted. He was born with a condition that made his brain develop slower than other kids, but we didn't mind. We were going to be patient with his slow development. One day, Jack needed to be taken to the hospital for his regular checkup. Gloria had to go to work very early, and it was impossible for me to skip my work. I called Gloria's parents, but they were both unavailable. Jack usually had severe back and head pains that needed to be avoided by injecting a special drug into him every 3 weeks. I knew if he didn't go to the hospital that day, our son's pain was going to affect the whole neighborhood. I didn't want that to happen. Quickly, I fetched my phone and called one of my closest work friends. He picked up and asked why I wasn't at our workplace yet. I explained the situation to him and begged him to help tell our boss that I was going to be a little late. He agreed and even asked me to take my time with Jack. I was grateful to him, and with a relieved heart, took my son to the clinic. After about 2 hours, I was on my way to my workplace. However, the scene I was met with wasn't what I'd expected.
How dare you, Thane? You've kept everyone at work standstill because of your absence, and you didn't even give a reason to be absent.
Shocked, I turned to my friend who I'd asked to help speak to my boss, and he looked away. Turning to my boss, I explained it all to him and also told him how I'd contacted my friend to speak to him, since no worker had his number. Well, long story short, both my friend and I were fired. Me, for obvious reasons, and my friends, for intentionally not telling my boss about it because he wanted me gone, thereby obstructing completion of work for the day. I was down and disappointed. For another whole year, I searched for jobs everywhere, but couldn't get one. Luckily for us, Gloria's job was good enough, so we were able to feed well with her money. In the middle of the second year, luck shined on me, and I got a job. It was as an assistant manager in an automobile company. I could have never imagined myself getting the job. I was shocked when I passed the interview so easily. On my way out of the building after the interview, the lady at the front desk stopped me.
Did you pass?
Yes, I did. I'm gonna be the new manager.
I see how happy you are. I hope that smile remains on your face in the coming weeks.
I didn't understand what she meant, but I thanked her and continued my way out. I broke the news to my wife and her parents, and they were equally elated. My father-in-law knew the company, as he was friends with the CEO. However, he said something quite worrisome to me.
I've heard about people quitting very quickly from the company. I have no idea about their reason, but I hope you last there. Congratulations, son.
Anyway, I shrugged any negative thoughts off. I wasn't going to let anything kill my excitement. The next week, I resumed working as the assistant manager of the company. It wasn't as stressful as I'd imagined. It seemed as though the manager was barely around, the reason for an assistant. I did my job as I should, for a week straight, hoping to meet the manager soon. Eventually, he showed up after a week and 3 days. He was a middle-aged man and always kept a frown on his face. When I met him and introduced myself to him, he waved me off dismissively and asked me to do my job and not try to get familiar with him.
I'm your boss. You mustn't try to top me, okay? Don't smile while I'm around and always bow to me.
His words sounded quite weird. I mean, I clearly wasn't trying to overpower him or anything. There was no point in trying to scare me off. Anyway, I played along and simply agreed to everything he said. In the next 2 weeks, I needed no one to tell me the reason the previous workers left. The man was a bully. Whenever we were having meetings, everyone was thrown into a state of panic. There would be visible sweat on their forehead. I could also see most quivering. Every time there was a meeting, he fired one or more people. Some for coming a minute late, some for breathing too loudly. One time, he even fired someone for coughing while he was speaking. Sir, it's quite hard to hold a cough. I don't think he would cough out loud if he could hold it in. Please, forgive him. I tried to beg on the young man's behalf, since he'd only started working at the company 2 days ago.
One more word from you, Thane, and you're going to get fired too.
I had no choice but to be silent. I wasn't ready to begin another round of job hunting. 2 months later, Jack suddenly fell sick. It was so bad that in a space of 2 weeks, it had rendered him crippled. My wife had to quit her job to stay at the hospital and look after him after he was admitted. Even though my heart was heavy with worry, I had to keep working. I couldn't afford to be jobless again. I had to be strong for my family. Jack's sickness got worse. No matter how the doctors tried, they just couldn't point out the exact thing that was going on with him. It even got to a point where he could no longer speak. My wife and I were devastated. Her parents took him to the best hospital, all of us hoping for him to get better as quickly as possible. A month later, I received even more devastating news.
I'm afraid we might have to start feeding him through a feeding tube.
Gloria cried all day. Slowly, our son got even worse. After 2 months of being in the hospital, he died. We lost Jack. I saw my whole world crumble in front of me. I cried my eyes out, but Gloria cried even more. There was no way we could be comforted. He was our only child, the light of our small world. Sadness filled our hearts. Gloria didn't want him going to the morgue. Even though she was in deep pain, she wanted him to be laid to rest quickly after suffering so much. I requested a 3-day leave from work to mourn and bury my son. I'd requested it from the CEO, as I knew the manager would likely not agree to it. The man granted me 2 weeks to have enough time to mourn my son. I was grateful. We quickly prepared his funeral. On that day, the only people present were I and Gloria, her parents, and his teachers. In the middle of the funeral, however, someone suddenly burst into the cemetery. I turned and was shocked to see the manager. "Why are you here, sir?"
You must be stupid for asking me that. Did I give you the permission to leave your work to bury God knows whatever it is you're burying?
How dare you say that about my son?
Is the dead thing more important than your job? Huh, you idiot.
I was filled with rage and ordered him to leave, but he refused.
You're either going to stop this rubbish you're doing now and come with me, or be prepared to lose your job.
In anger, I told him to do whatever he wanted. I told him to fire me if he wanted, and I didn't care. He still wasn't having it. He tried to grab my arm and lift me up, but I pushed him off. Everyone was in shock. When he punched me, all hell let loose. My father-in-law immediately contacted the police as I and some of the guys around pounced on him and began to beat him up mercilessly. By the time the police arrived, he already had a broken lips, nose, and other injuries. He was immediately arrested and taken away. After the funeral, I contacted the CEO and told him about the situation. I also called some of the workers. It was time to stop his evil behaviors toward us. Together with Gloria and her parents, we all gathered at the police station. After hearing what he did to me, what he'd done to the previous employees, and all he'd been doing to us workers, the CEO was shocked. I pressed charges against him for disrupting my son's funeral and hitting me. He was also charged with bullying and harassment of employees. He was fired and also sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. Also, he was made to compensate us monetarily. I completed my 2 weeks leave, comforting my wife and myself. Afterward, I resumed working. A new manager was also employed. However, I wasn't satisfied with the punishment the manager was receiving. After thinking deeply about a punishment that was best, I finally found one. Secretly, I paid some officers to get the bad guys in prison to gang up on him and give him a permanent injury. And it happened. He was beaten so badly that he ended up being paralyzed from his waist downward and had to be confined to a wheelchair. I was fortunate enough to receive evidence of him cheating on his family and videos of him bullying staff from an anonymous sender. I knew it would be an old worker, but I didn't bother to look into it. I posted all online and paid influencers to make it go viral. The CEO caught on that I was behind the posting, but he didn't care. He also thought the manager deserved it. I visited him in jail to show him all the bad comments people were making about him, and he was purely devastated. His family were ashamed of him and completely cut him off, leaving him all alone. I was satisfied afterward and moved on with my life. Gloria got pregnant after 1 year and birthed our daughter. We miss our son, but we're happy we finally have another child. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. Between trying to pay for my portion of the rent and groceries and paying for the child support and alimony, I was barely scraping by. I was struggling so hard trying to make ends meet and was burning myself out. I could work overtime, but the more I made, the more I would just have to give to Wendy. And then the worst news possibly happened. My boss came to me one day at work and told me that I was being laid off. The company needed to trim a bunch of workers, and unfortunately, I was one of those that was let go. I tried to plead my case, but there was nothing he could do. That month, when I couldn't give Wendy the money I was being forced to pay her, she called me up and screamed at me. I was done listening to her, and so I hung up on her and blocked her calls. But then after a couple of months of this, some police officers showed up at my home and told me that I was under arrest for refusal to pay my alimony and child support. Hi there, my name is Ryan, and my life has been hell for the last few years. I have been through the ringer, and while my story does have a happy ending, let me tell you. There were times when I wasn't sure that it would. I really was scared that things would constantly get worse. But there is one thing that really has helped me through all of this, and that is when things get really bad. That is when you know who your real friends are, who the people are that you can really trust, and thankfully, I surrounded myself with such people. It all started several years ago when I got married to Wendy. Things started off well enough, but it didn't take long before Wendy started showing signs that she had been hiding who she truly was the entire time. For starters, when we were dating, she would make a point of making most of our meals. But soon after we were married, she refused. Hey babe, that was a long day, but all that overtime will help at the end of the month. What's for dinner?
How the hell should I know?
Oh, I just figured since you only worked a half day that you wouldn't mind making dinner. But if you're tired, then we can always order out.
And now you want to waste money on ordering takeout? Get off your lazy ass and just make us something. It better be healthy though.
Of course it wasn't like that all the time, but at least 5 nights a week, no matter if I put in overtime or not, I would be responsible for dinner. And if Wendy didn't like what I made, then she would throw away her portion and order delivery. Honestly, the amount of times that she did that really started to add up as well. And I know what you're thinking. She was working as well, and it would be wrong of me to expect her to always cook, but she only worked part-time a few days a week and only 4-hour days. And she worked at a bank as a teller, which can be stressful, but her branch was never busy. While I tended to work 12-hour days Monday to Friday, and 8 on Saturdays in a salt mine. I thankfully never have to go to a gym as I get a workout every day I work. But it was more than just that. Even when it came to cleaning, I would have to do the larger share. In the beginning, this annoyed me, because after a long day mining, my body was sore and aching, and the last thing I wanted to do was to vacuum the whole house and do 3 loads of laundry. But that was how things went. Then one day, Wendy came home and told me that she was pregnant. I found this odd as our love life had been very infrequent since we got married, but I figured that didn't really matter. The only thing I could think of was that I was going to be a father. The thought of it made me so incredibly happy. On the day that my twin sons were born,
I introduced them to my brother George, who agreed that they were incredibly cute. When our sons were born, I had assumed that Wendy might change and become a bit softer, but she instead was constantly angry with me. I never knew what I did to upset her, but no matter what, she would yell and curse me out.
Ryan, did you do the dishes?
Yes, of course.
You did? Fine. What about cutting the grass?
I haven't gotten around to cutting the grass yet.
You are so lazy. My mother warned me about how much of a loser you are and how I shouldn't have married such a useless boy.
Okay, that's enough. Damn it, Wendy. I do more around here than you do, and I'm sick of you giving me grief. Why do you always have to pick a fight with me?
Oh, is the little man upset? I'll give you something to be upset about.
I was scared, and I thought that she was going to hit me. But then she grabbed a frying pan and smacked herself in the face with it, hard enough to split her lip and to cause a massive black eye. Staring at her with a fiendish grin on her face, I was so confused, until she then called the police and told them that I had hit her. And then it suddenly made sense. There was no way they were going to believe that she had hit herself, and sure enough, when they showed up, they hit me a few times with their clubs and then threw me into the back of a squad car. I ended up spending the next week in jail until I was finally released. I had no intentions of going home, as I did not want to provoke Wendy again, and so I went to stay with George while I figured things out. That was when Wendy served me with divorce papers. As painful as it was, I knew that this was for the best, but I had no idea that this was only the beginning of more trouble. During the divorce proceedings, I applied to get equal custody, so that I would still be able to see our boys, but the court denied my request since I had been charged with domestic violence. I pleaded that it was a fake charge, but no one other than George would believe me. In the end, I was granted limited access, where I would only see my sons a couple of days a month, and only while supervised. It was so infuriating. On top of that, I was forced to pay alimony and child support. The two combined added up to over 80% of my paycheck. Between trying to pay for my portion of the rent and groceries, and paying for the child support and alimony, I was barely scraping by. I was struggling so hard trying to make ends meet and was burning myself out. I could work overtime, but the more I made, the more I would just have to give to Wendy. And then the worst news possibly happened. My boss came to me one day at work and told me that I was being laid off. The company needed to trim a bunch of workers, and unfortunately, I was one of those that was let go. I tried to plead my case, but there was nothing he could do. That month, when I couldn't give Wendy the money I was being forced to pay her, she called me up and screamed at me. I was done listening to her, and so I hung up on her and blocked her calls. But then after a couple of months of this, some police officers showed up at my home and told me that I was under arrest for refusal to pay my alimony and child support. Just like with Wendy, I tried to explain that there wasn't anything that I could do. I spent every day looking for work, but I just couldn't find a job that would pay enough to cover the money I was being forced to pay her and to still be able to live on top of that. They dragged me to court, and sadly the judge that presided over my case didn't care and sentenced me to 3 years in prison for failure to pay what I owed. It was maddening. After all, how was I supposed to pay my bills while in prison? On top of that, the judge told me that I would be expected to pay all the payments that I missed once I got out of prison, and that any money I made for the rest of my life would be garnished until I had repaid every last penny. To be honest, I hit rock bottom and contemplated just ending things, but then my brother told me to use the prison library and maybe try to find a way out of my situation. He suggested that perhaps there was a law that would help me. I had literally nothing better to do, and so I studied hard, but the only thing that I could come up with was that if I could prove that Wendy had faked being attacked, or if the boys weren't mine, then I could charge her with fraud and reverse my sentence and all of the insane payments as well, but that was a major problem. However, my brother told me that he would see what he could do. 2 months later, my brother came to visit me in prison and had the biggest grin on his face. When I asked him why he was so happy, he showed me a folder he had with him. When I saw what was inside it, I began to smile as well. He had hired a private investigator who was a woman to befriend Wendy, and while hanging out, Wendy had admitted to her that she had faked when I assaulted her and even recorded it. I couldn't believe that he was able to get that, but that was only the tip of the iceberg. The private investigator also was able to run some paternity tests on my sons. Apparently, during a drunken night out, Wendy had admitted that neither of my sons were mine. She confessed that she had constantly cheated on me and wasn't even sure who the real fathers were. That was hard to read, but I knew that it was exactly what I needed to get myself out of this terrible situation. And so I took what my brother had gathered and petitioned the court to review the new evidence that I had gathered. A month later, I received word that a judge would hear my case, and upon hearing the evidence I had along with the fact that Wendy had sworn under oath that I had abused her, and that both sons were mine only for all of it to be a lie, she reversed the charges against me and charged Wendy with fraud, which meant that I was now free from prison, but there was more. The judge decided that all the money that I had paid Wendy was unlawfully taken from me, and so it would need to be repaid along with interest. Furthermore, since she was now a convicted criminal, she was now the one that would have to pay me child support and alimony. At least she would once she was out of prison, and the judge sentenced her to 10 years behind bars. Much like what was supposed to happen to me, she was on the hook to pay me for all the years that she was in prison as well. So once she got out, her wages would be garnished, and she would pay me back for all the money she owed me, plus interest as well. It was such a sweet reversal, and the look of shock and fear that was on her face when she heard the judge's decision nearly made my time in prison worth it. Once she was away in prison, I was left with the knowledge that my sons weren't mine, but honestly, they are the one thing from my marriage that I do not regret. Even though they aren't my flesh and blood, they are still my sons, and maybe one day we can figure out who their biological fathers are. But even then, that won't change how much I love them and how I feel blessed to be their father. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.